Well, welcome. Welcome everybody to the Special Olympics Coach Webinar Series 2025, presented by our official sponsor, Gallagher. Thank you to Gallagher for their support as the official sponsor of Special Olympics Sports and Coach Programming. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. We want to offer you coaches more learning opportunities on those areas you want to learn more about. Today's webinar is about how can you become better coaches. Let me give you some additional information. This webinar offers simultaneous interpretation in 8 different languages. And you can choose your language using the globe button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Please type any questions you may have for the speakers in the chat or in the Q&A function. Well, good morning again, everybody. And my name is Pablo Composto, and I am a global messenger for Latin America. I am also a leading athlete in Special Olympics Argentina. And I would like to talk to you a little bit about the importance of coaches in Special Olympics. The function of coaches within the movement is very broad, and I refer to how they encourage us to be better people every day, working on a very important aspect like self-esteem for sports, values, perseverances, effort, among other aspects. They are great teachers. I remember a coach from Buenos Aires, San Miguel. It's a province I used to live in. His name was Fernando Pozo. Through his brave attitude, through words and phrases that had this deep connotation, impacted me in an extraordinary way. Let me give you a simple example. Forging the spirit. He was a key person in my life because he taught me how to overcome my deepest fears and how to never give up in the face of the test that life gives us. One of the phrases that influenced me the most was, come on. If you want to win, you have to be brave and not give up. Just let's go on. Let's go now. So from now on, I would like to invite you, coaches, to become agents of change for those future athletes so that within them that you can arise that passion to achieve great goals and dreams in their lives. But never forget that through effort and perseverance. Now, let us hear from our fantastic speakers who are joining us today in this webinar. First, we have Cher Jenny Wolf. Jenny is a former Olympic athlete, long track speed skating, and hold the highest coaches education at German Sports Federation from the Coaches Academy. She was the national coach for the Germany speed skating development team until 2020. Now, since 2021, Jenny has been the head of coaches, education, and research program at Special Olympics Germany. Her role is planning and delivering coach education and training program within Special Olympics and in external context, and also to develop a long-term coach education curriculum for Special Olympics coaches. Jenny?
Thank you very much, Pablo. And thank you everyone for being here. So I very much for inviting me to speak today. It's a pleasure to be here and to share some insights from Special Olympics Germany about how we approach coach education and development. I will share how we approach competency-based coach education, helping coaches not only gain knowledge, but apply it meaningfully. First, we will look at the competence model of the German Sports Federation, which guides our learning design. Then I will introduce you to the learning path for coaches and volunteers, which combines online and practical learning. We will also explore the assistant coaches training, where athletes themselves take on leadership roles. And finally, we will close with a reflection on how to be a better coach, turning learning into confident, inclusive practice. Next slide. I think Pablo introduced me very well, so we can skip this one. So what is competency-based coach education? The key framework for our approach is competency-based education. This means we focus on helping coaches develop the ability to act competently, not just know the facts. We as educators guide learning, while coaches actively reflect and apply what they learn. On the next slide, you will see the 4 steps that guide our learning journey. The German Sports Federation, the DUSB, you see the logo there, has its own competence model. It guides coach education through 4 steps. The first step is we start with real coach life situations in training or competition. Then we define learning objectives. The next step is to create learning tasks. And finally, we assess skills in practical situations. This ensures coaches can apply knowledge reflectively, improve training quality, and develop their careers. Let's look at the next slide at how this model works in practice. We use a real coaching example. We start with a realistic challenge situation. In this case, the coach is helping an athlete improve their free throw technique in basketball. This sets the stage for identifying which competencies the coach needs. In this case, both technical and communicative skills. Next, we define a competence-oriented learning objectives. The coach should be able to explain the free throw technique in easy language, so that the athlete understands and can apply it independently. Then comes the learning task. The coach records and reflects on her or his communication during instruction. He or she is using video to identify what worked well and what could be improved. This promotes self-awareness and concrete learning from practice. And finally, we have the assessment situation. This is not a quiz, but the coach uploads a video from a real training session and receives structured feedback from a coach developer. This feedback links theory, reflection, and real-world coaching. Through this process, the learner moves from knowledge to competence, being able to act effectively, thoughtfully, and in real coaching contexts. Next slide. Next, take a closer look at the modules and online learning that guide coaches at SO Germany step by step. A key part of our coach education pathway is online learning. a combination of self-paced formats and blended learning with practical workshops. The journey begins with an introduction to Special Olympics, where participants explore our philosophy, learn about inclusion, and the principles of barrier-free communication. Next, we cover Article 1, which outlines the official Special Olympics sports rules. And we cover essential aspects of safe sport, ensuring that every training and competition environment is safe and respectful. From there, learners move into sport-specific modules that are tailored to the needs of these different disciplines, allowing each coach to focus on the areas most relevant to their sport. In addition, we place great importance on ongoing reflection, mentoring, and peer exchange. For example, the SOS Germany Sports Conference or sport-specific workshops provide a space where coaches can connect, share experiences, and continue developing skills. Each of these steps builds competence through active and applied learning, supporting coaches in becoming more reflective, skilled, and inclusive in their work. On the slides, down on the slides, you see the badges that you can earn when you join the learning journey. So on the next slide, I'd like to introduce you to our assistant coaches training program. This program is designed to be inclusive. It is open to people with and without intellectual disabilities. And it is structured so that everyone can learn and participate fully. It is delivered in easy German so that everyone can understand and participate equally. The ideal setup is a tandem format, where coach and assistant learn and practice together right from the beginning. The program follows a modular structure, and it is also aligned with the DOSB, that means with the German Sports Federation standards. It includes about 30 learning units, and it spreads over two-day blocks. Between these blocks, there's time for practice and reflection. This rhythm of learning, applying, and reflecting really helps participants grow in confidence and competence. So what are the main modules? The modules are structured to build both practical skills and social competencies. We begin enabling athletes to lead cross-sports exercise units, helping them experience what it means to plan and guide short sessions for others. They also learn how to support head coaches during training sessions, setting up equipment, organizing groups, or assisting with technical or warm-up activities. Another important focus is motivation, being a role model and fairness, understanding how their own behavior can influence the atmosphere in the team. This training also covers prevention of interpersonal violence in sports, ensuring that all participants know how to recognize, address, and prevent harmful behavior. In the area of competition, participants can act as volunteers or assistant referees, gaining experience in managing events and supporting fair play. Finally, we emphasize participation in club and community life, encouraging assistant coaches to take initiative, plan small activities, and represent inclusion in their sports environments. Altogether, these modules aim to develop independence, confidence, and inclusion through competence. There are some of the athletes who got their certificates. I think it's 3 years ago during Corona. That's why they don't stand nearer together. So what are the expected outcomes? At the end, the assistant coach participants are ready to take on real meaningful roles within their sports clubs, in their communities, or at work. They can assist in regular training sessions, helping with organization, demonstration, and group management. Many are also able to lead simple exercise units on their own, for example, warm-ups or short drills, building confidence and leadership experience. They act as motivators and role models. They inspire teammates, promote fairness, and they strengthen the team spirit. The athletes can also support competition operations, whether as volunteer or assistant referee. Importantly, they have learned how to engage actively in club life, helping to plan activities, take responsibility, and represent inclusion in everyday sports settings. So what are our experiences from this coaches development? When we use competency-based approach and create opportunities for reflective learning, we see real change, both in coaches and in athletes. Coaches and athletes become more reflective, confident, and motivated. They begin to think about why they do things, not just how. And that reflection drives personal growth. We also see better transfer of learning into practice. Knowledge is no longer something that stays in a course or a manual. It is applied on the field, in the gym, and in real-life interactions. This leads to a stronger culture of inclusion. Coaches start to design environments where everyone can contribute, learn, and feel valued, regardless of ability. Finally, coaching itself becomes more athlete-centered and meaningful. It's not only about improving performance, it's about building relationships, trusts, and opportunities for all athletes to shine. And that, in the end, is what defines a truly inclusive and competent coach. So I come to the end. How can we all be better coaches? First, by reflecting on what we do, what works and why. Second, by listening deeply to our athletes and colleagues. We should adapt training to the individual and encourage autonomy, giving athletes space to take responsibility. Being a good coach also means promoting inclusion, making sure everyone belongs and learns together. And finally, never stop learning. Seek feedback, share experiences, and grow through reflection. Better coaches and better educators don't just teach skills, they create environments where athletes and learners can thrive. Thank you for listening. I hope these insights into Special Olympics Germany coach education approach inspire you to develop competence and inclusion in your own coaching or coaching development contexts. Please feel free to reach out with questions or collaboration afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny, for that wonderful presentation on the coach education work that is being done in Germany. Very well. Now we have Dr. Bettina Callary. Dr. Bettina Callary is the Canada Research Chair in Sport Coaching and Adult Learning. She is a professor and the chair of the Department of Experiential Studies in Community and Sports. And she's also the director of the Institute in Community, Sport and Health at Cape Breton University in Nova Scotia, Canada. She researches coach education and development strategies, coach developers, and psychosocial understanding of inclusive sports. Most recently, she received a grant to partner with Special Olympics International for research on coach development worldwide. Dr. Callary is the editor-in-chief of the International Sport Coaching Journal. She is also an alpine He coached swim coach, master triathlete, and coach developer. In addition to being a volunteer in Special Olympics, where her daughter participates in many sports. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Pablo. Thanks so much for having me here. It's really exciting to see in the chat where people are from and who all is here. And I really appreciate sort of all the comments that have been coming through. As Pablo explained, I have been a professor for 13 years, and I consider myself to be an applied scholar. So I'm a practitioner as well as an academic in sport coaching. And I focus on inclusive, participatory, and community-driven research that directly informs coach education practice. I like to draw on my experiences as being a coach and an athlete, so that when I work with sport organizations and I can help them to design and deliver tailored coach education modules. My goal is really to create safer and more inclusive and socially just sport environments for sport participants of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds. So to give you an idea of where I am, if you could go to the next slide, please. This is the map of Canada, and you'll see Cape Breton Island in the far corner in orange. And first, I'll say that I respectfully acknowledge that I live and I work in Mi'kma'ki, and that's the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, which is known by its colonial name as Cape Breton Island. And this territory is covered by treaties of peace and friendship that were signed in 1725 and did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources. If you could go to the next slide, please. This is a picture of where I live that was taken this past weekend, which in Canada was Thanksgiving weekend. And on to the next slide, you'll see a picture of what brought me into and loving and admiring Special Olympics as an organization. Its amazing coaches, volunteers, and athletes. This is a photo at the Atlantic Canadian Summer Games this past year, and my daughter competed in athletics. She is the one in the red shirt. She's been a member of Special Olympics for 4 years since she was 12. And as Pablo mentioned, she does many sports. There are some pictures of her throughout the presentation. And I've been a coach and volunteer locally since that time as well. And I started working on this research project on coach education in Special Olympics International with Fiona Murray and Jeff Lehart in the spring. And so I'll be talking a little bit about that as well through my presentation. Next slide, please. So today we're talking about becoming a better coach, but I want to ask you if you could please take a moment to use the QR code or to type in menti.com and use the code to look at how you become a better coach. And so it will ask you to put in 1, 2, or 3 words, and it will create a word cloud. And we can take a look at that if you will do that quickly with me now. And Jeff, if you can bring it up, that would be wonderful. So a lot of wonderful words coming up already. Learning being a big one. Compassion, reflection, which ties nicely to what Jenny was talking about. Listening, I love these words. Feedback, yes, and if you would like to answer in the chat as well. We'll go to the next slide if you can, Jeff. These are all very important words to think about as we start to think about how we become better. In a study that I did with Van Wozik in 2022, we had about 800 coaches fill out a questionnaire that they were mostly Canadian coaches. They were talking about where they develop different sources of knowledge. And as you can see here, some of the top ways in which coaches are learning is through interacting with other coaches, through observing coaches, learning by doing, learning from their players, and also learning from coach education, formal coach education, from being mentors and having mentors, and from other learning sources. And so what this shows is that there are many, many ways to become a better coach. If you can go to the next slide. So when we look at becoming, we can turn to a learning theorist named Peter Jarvis, who defines lifelong learning as a process of becoming. So a person is involved in different social situations in their life, and they transform these situations and integrate them into their biographies, and they become more experienced as a result. And when we look at the process of becoming as learning, and as learning as being something that can be developed through many, many different experiences, we start to understand that there are certain episodic experiences that can be very meaningful to people and can result in considerable change to the way that they perceive what they know, and has the potential to also influence future learning. So what we're talking about in becoming better is really about learning from various experiences. So my dissertation research looked at women coaches' pathways to becoming coaches and to staying in long careers in coaching. And some of the main themes that came out of the ways that they were becoming coaches and becoming more experienced were in their experiences with athletes, from other coaches, from formal and non-formal coach education, from their own family, and also from reflecting on all of those experiences. And so I will go through some of these main topics moving forward in this presentation. When we first look at becoming better through experiences with athletes, a new study by Corticaz on coaching individuals with intellectual disability and autism looked at the perspectives of coaches and physical education teachers in Belgium. And some of the key highlights from that study show that coaching in Special Olympics goes beyond sport. So we have to navigate behavioral, emotional, and communication challenges, and it requires a broad and adaptive skill set. The coaches also talked about inclusion as being rewarding but complex. So they really needed to be flexible and individualized to accommodate the wide range of skills and behaviors and group dynamics that they were working with. And as I say this, you might be thinking, yes, of course, I do this and I see this regularly. So how do you then become better through your experiences with athletes? Now, this is probably something you know, but sometimes it's good to remember that you're learning in many of these experiences. So get to know your athletes, listen to them, talk to them about sport, but also about life. Talk to them about where and how they live, and what are their passions and interests, and what are some of their challenges. And this can help you to better understand how you can work with them. And next slide, please. When we look at becoming better through experiences with other coaches, a colleague of mine, Danielle Alexander Urquhart, interviewed 13 Canadian Special Olympics coaches on their career experiences. And they described how coaching in Special Olympics required creativity and patience and adaptability, as strategies and practices used one day or with one athlete may not work the next day or with a different athlete. And so they talked about how coach mentorship could help them better prepare for the demands of training and competition. So this kind of links the idea of learning from your athletes with talking to coaches and others who might be experiencing similar things to think through how to work, how to problem solve, how to make decisions in these different situations. In another study with Special Olympics coaches, McDonald and colleagues identify that mentors are ideal sources of learning. And so when we look at mentorship, we're talking about this dynamic relationship where there's a more knowledgeable or experienced coach that provides guidance and psychosocial support to a less knowledgeable or experienced coach. What's interesting about this idea is that in a recently conducted study with Alexander Urquhart and Gordon Bloom that I conducted, we looked at 8 Special Olympics coaches in Canada, and they also talked about wanting mentorship formally because they found that many coaches progressed quickly from assistant to head coaches. And so they wanted to be able to work with more experienced coaches to gain knowledge quickly. Now, mentorship is largely an informal process. You find a coach that you can discuss things with, who's able to provide some good experiences and talk through different issues with you. So they were talking about having a formal mentorship process. What we found in the study with Van Wozik that I showed you before with the graph of all the different learning sources were that coaches saw great value in informal mentorship, but they also noted that there were many barriers. There could be a lack of quality mentors, or they may feel intimidated to ask for help. And that due to that limited access, they wanted organizations to create formal mentorship programs. So formal mentorship that is set up through coach education organizations with trained mentors who support mentees' development, that can act as this bridge between providing credible and instructionally designed learning with the idea of this informal learning that happens while coaching. And formal mentorship might be particularly well suited to the benefits of learning in the unique context of Special Olympics. Another way of learning from coaches might be in developing a community of practice. So a community of practice is a group of coaches that have a shared understanding and work closely together to accomplish something. And so they might be trying to find resolutions to common issues that they have or to deepen their knowledge on topics. And in communities of practice, members are able to get help and support to deal with challenges, and they have access to different expertise of the members of the group, and they contribute as part of a team to develop confidence in their approaches. In a study that I did in looking at communities of practice with coaches, we found that it was really important to have dedicated time and space to meet as a community of practice. It was very beneficial if there was a facilitator or a leader who would help to determine the different timing of the meetings as well as the topics that were discussed. And as a group to figure out what were the key issues that you wanted to discuss from meeting to meeting. You can go to the next slide, yeah. When we look at becoming better through experiences in education, Corticas also found that there was this clear call for tailored coach education in Special Olympics, that there were some gaps in traditional coach education, and that Special Olympics coaches were looking for training that's specific to disability, that was essential for building confidence and competence in inclusive coaching environments. And so there are several different coach education modules through Special Olympics International. There's the link there. We don't have to go to it right now. There's also many country-specific coach education. Jenny's presentation was a perfect example of that, and what an incredible opportunity for athletes to also become coaches and have leadership opportunities in the sport. So as Pablo mentioned, Special Olympics International's coach education and development team is working with me and a research team that includes Gordon Bloom, who I've mentioned, and Danielle Alexander Urquhart, who I've mentioned, and Diane Culver. And our plan is to expand our understanding of coaching effectiveness within Special Olympics from a global perspective, and to explore coach learning opportunities that are available to coaches around the world. So across 2 phases of 2 years, we are exploring international sport Special Olympics coaches' experiences, motivations, and strategies that they deem to be effective when they're coaching their athletes. And then we're going to focus on coach learning and development opportunities that are available around the globe to identify whether and how these meet the needs and interests of coaches. We've currently interviewed 8 coaches from across Asia Pacific, North America, and Latin America. We are looking for 5 coaches per region who can speak to coach training and practice in their region. And so we are still looking for coaches from Europe, from Africa, and from the Middle East and North Africa and East Asia. So I've put my email down at the bottom there. If you are interested in taking part in this study, especially if you're from Europe and Africa, MENA, or East Asia, please send me an email and I'll be happy to get that going for you. Next slide, yeah. When we look at becoming better through experiences with family, the idea, Cortica suggested that collaboration makes all the difference. So fostering strong partnerships with parents and schools and other professionals will create continuity and trust and good outcomes across all these environments. And so the idea here may be to look at developmental networks for coaches. So this is the idea that mentoring or learning from others, relationships, these can vary in relationship type, strength, and function. And it's arguably an extremely important consideration in Special Olympics because many coaches have family members who are also athletes. And so it's an excellent way to learn from your own family in terms of how you then bring that to the field or the pool or the pitch. When we look at becoming better through reflection on experiences, this kind of ties everything together, and it comes back to exactly what Jenny was saying in her last presentation as well. This is when we reflect on our experiences, this is a way of making sense of these experiences that are happening in complex situations. Some research that we did found that para coaches often felt like they needed to rely on able-bodied resources for education, but that the unique physiological and behavioral and intellectual abilities of athletes meant that they needed specialized equipment, medications, and all of these things really directly impacted training. And so the idea was to engage in reflection was a very important way to really learn from those experiences. When we look at that reflective cycle, the idea here is that we think about what happened, but then we go deeper than just thinking about what happened. We look at what were you thinking? How were you feeling in that situation? What was good and bad about the situation? What sense can you make of that situation? So how can you analyze that situation? And importantly, what are different options of things that you might have done or that you could do in the future? This helps you to then create an action plan so that in the future, when you have similar situations, you're able to select from many different options that you might have already thought through to select the best response moving forward. And so reflection on experience is a very important way of really tying together what you are learning in these experiences, how they are meaningful, and how they can be applied to future situations. Next slide, please. So, we've been talking about becoming a better coach in Special Olympics. Really to summarize here, engaging with athletes thoughtfully will help you become a better coach. This is something that you probably do. So reflecting on that experience and on how you are learning from that experience can help you become a better coach. Having a network of coaches where you can create a community of practice or where you can have mentors can help you, and perhaps finding and taking coach education programs, courses, and webinars such as this one can help you to become a better coach. Collaborating with your family members, and importantly, really reflecting on all of those experiences so that you can transform them into action plans, is really the idea of integrating these experiences and the way that you're understanding them into your biography, into who you are, and becoming more experienced as a result. So thank you very much for listening. Thank
Thank you, Bettina, for your wonderful presentation. The information you gave us is so beneficial for us, especially for all those coaches in attendance. Thank you again to all our speakers. Very well. Let's go to the Q&A session. The first question is for you, Jenny. How can coaches in other countries can access similar resources to the ones you discussed today?
Thank you, Pablo, for the questions. Yes, while the specific programs as shared are from Special Olympics Germany, the principles are the same: competency-based learning, reflection, and inclusion. They can be applied anywhere. Coaches can access similar resources through Special Olympics International, the website, or the online learning. I think Bettina showed already the link. Or you can collaborate with your local sports organization or connect with peer networks. There also are international workshops, and there is a lot of open access online courses or resources that you can use free of cost all over the world. I'm also happy to share links and materials after the webinar for anyone who wants to explore further.
Thank you. Thank you for such a good answer, Jenny. My next question is for you, Bettina. Coaches are very important in the Special Olympics. Why is it important for coaches to continue and improve on their sports and the art of coaching? Bettina?
Thanks, Pablo. I think perhaps at the very beginning, you told the story of your coach, Fernando, and how he had instilled in you confidence and resilience and this idea of never giving up, to pursue your passions and find goals. And I think that this is really the core of why coaches should always be learning and becoming more experienced coaches, because of the impact that you can have on athletes. There's such an incredible opportunity for coaches to have positive and life-changing impacts with athletes. And so in order to do that to the best of our ability, our own development as coaches is something that then becomes very important. And so, um, you know, you said coaches are agents of change. And in order to really make that change effective and to make that change positive and transformational, we always want to be learning and being the best version of ourselves. So I think that that's why it's so important.
Thank you, Bettina, for that wonderful answer. Very well. Thank you for all your wonderful contributions. Now, here I would like to give you some resources. Special Olympics offers a number of very good resources, so coaches can continue learning and improving their coaching knowledge. The Special Olympics online learning portal has a huge number of courses related to coaching, fitness, health, and protective behaviors. The link to this online learning portal, you can find it in the chat. The Special Olympics website has different resources for different areas. Be sure to check out the sport specific resources so you can access to all of these amazing resources. This includes unified sports, fitness, and divisioning. All of these resources will help you with your coaching within Special Olympics athletes. Now, coaches need support, and athletes can help you. Nominate an athlete so they can become a fitness captain and help lead their team in warm ups, cool downs, and making health choices. This will support better performances, prevent injuries, and improve overall health. Fitness captains work with coaches to make fitness a key part of the sports experience. They are great for any sport and any athlete. To nominate someone, email the SOI Fitness team. For more information, watch the video and check out the links provided. Very well. I would like to tell you that something very important is I'm also a fitness captain. Not too long ago, I can find the word and we see that this diploma, the certification. Very well. Special Olympics has created a new system to gather sports based on shared characteristics. This helps trainers and athletes back by making training more focused, using resources more efficiently, and improving how programs are delivered. We are asking for coaches' feedback to make sure that our new sport categorization system is accurate, useful, and that actually supports athletes' development. This short survey is your chance to help confirm that your sport or sports are grouped correctly. So thank you for taking a few minutes to complete this survey. And this link is in the chat. The coach webinar series dashboard. This year, we continue having these dashboards so you engage more in these webinars. Here you will find links to resources, recordings of webinars, the slides, the presentations, and the options to ask questions to the presenters or hosts. This dashboard is your one-stop shop for everything related to Coach Webinar Series. Did you know that we had 27 webinars so far and over 50 different speakers? You can watch every webinar in the dashboard. Very well. This was our last webinar of the 2025 Coach Webinar Series. This is the 5th year of the webinar series. I would like to thank everybody that was part of this webinar, and I hope that you learned new things, and we actually hope that you are taking this knowledge and making them actions. don't want to forget our sponsor, Gallagher. Thank you for their support of the Special Olympics Coach webinar series. Goodbye.